Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers. You are in season 4 of the podcast. And as we always talk about, Jeremy, sometimes there are episodes that the randomizer chooses, shows that the randomizer picks for us to watch that are big time shows, are very obvious shows that everyone would think, yeah, you guys need to review that. There are other times that the randomizer chooses shows that are completely off the board without an obvious reason, as something that's completely random does. I would say this week's episode falls into that latter category.
Sure, occasionally it's a TV show that's a nothing, or it's an event like this one where there's no need to go back and watch this show, but we do because the randomizer chose it for us. It can pick anything. It's not always a hit, but some of the misses it's had, this is nowhere near that territory either.
No.
It's this one is from the WWE Old School category on the WWE Network or Peacock if you're streaming in the US. It's it's listed as LA Sports Arena. The date is August 13th, 1998, season 17, episode 5. This is just a random house show, or this old school section, mostly random house shows, although this one actually aired on television on the Z channel.
Yeah, a lot of these house shows that are on Peacock / WWE Network under the old school setting are like this, where they're house shows, but they're house shows that had some level of full TV production, some with announcers, some without. This does have commentary. We'll definitely get to that later. I was more familiar with, the Boston shows airing on local cable there. Obviously, the MSG shows airing on MSG Network. Maple Leaf Gardens shows kind of had a similar thing. I've never heard of the Z channel.
Neither did I.
What this aired on in Los Angeles?
I had to do some research. The Z channel launched in 1974.
Founded by Z-Man, Tom Zink, right?
Not quite. It was one of the first pay TV stations in the U.S., mainly showing movies until 1988. Remember the date of this show, August 13th, 1988. Competition from other pay TV channels like HBO, Showtime, and the Movie Channel increased. In 1988, the Z Channel started airing live sports. Deals were made to show games from the Los Angeles Angels, the Clippers, and the Dodgers, and WWF, obviously. The sports deals were funded by selling advertising during the games. However, court ruling reaffirmed the contracts with the movie studios stipulated that the service be commercial-free. Z Channel, out of options, was sold to NBC and Cablevision, who were joint partners in a new cable venture called Sports Channel. Wow. In 1989, the sale was done, and the Z Channel was retired. It was replaced by Sports Channel Los Angeles.
So the Z Channel was available nationally as sort of an HBO Showtime type of deal, or no?
That's it was, but it was focused on the Los Angeles area there. So,
which I guess makes sense because, as we talked about before, we here in Chicago, for some reason, had MSG Network on cable, and if I'm correct, and I believe we've talked about this before, like it split time. Like during the day, it would be Home Shopping Channel, and then at night, if there was a wrestling show, or I think they show Rangers games sometimes. But yeah, kind of the Wild West, the early days of cable. Like you said, the Z Channel. I don't think too many people would know that was a competitor of HBO and Showtime.
So this was a split crew working this house show / Z Channel special. Do you know where the other crew was? They were in Syracuse, New York.
Wow. So as far away basically as they could get. And I'm assuming, given who was on the show and who wasn't, that the other crew was headlined with the Hulk Hogan match.
That's what I thought. We were both wrong.
Wow.
Uh, the this card, we'll run it down real quick. This is going on the opposite side of the country on the same day. Terry Taylor defeated Scott Casey by disqualification. The Big Boss Man defeats Ken Patera. The Intercontinental title match, the Honky Tonk Man successfully defends against Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Ted DiBiase defeats Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Danny Davis defeats Mike Masters. Bad News Brown defeats Coco Beware. So if you were here to see the baby faces win, this was not the show for you. And the headlining match to send everyone home, the WWF tag team titles were on the line. The British Bulldogs defeated the champions Demolition by disqualification.
Wow. So non-finishes abound, in addition to heels winning up until the main event. So I guess, as it should be, this show here at the Los Angeles Sports Arena was in fact the A show, the
Very
A
much
crew. But kind of crazy that you had two shows going on, one in New York, one in Los Angeles, and neither
No
of them
Hogan.
had Hulk Hogan.
No Hogan. I couldn't figure out where Hogan was at this point, what was going on, why he wasn't on either of these shows, but he was not on either. Your commentary team for our show here in Los Angeles, Gorilla Monsoon and superstar Billy Graham. I was never a fan of superstar Billy Graham as a play-by-play guy, but I have to say, I found him entertaining for at least half of the show. Started to wear out his welcome towards the end, but I felt like for at least half this show, I was enjoying myself some superstar Billy Graham.
He was totally fine for parts of the show. With Gorilla calling the action and him, throwing stuff in as he did. The main event, I thought he was insufferable in, and we'll get to that later. I'm not sure.
He overstayed his welcome.
It almost seemed like Gorilla was having technical problems or had a frog in his throat, because there were several times to where, it reminded me of when you're watching a Chicago Cubs game, or I should say when you're listening to a Chicago Cubs game, and Pat Hughes leaves for the fifth inning. And if whoever happens to be in any given season, the studio pre and post game host isn't there to do play-by-play, and instead Ron Coomer has to do play-by-play, a guy who's usually an analyst. That was the vibes I had from superstar Billy Graham here in the main event. My overriding thought, though, on him, even in the parts where he wasn't bad, he could best be described commentator-wise as Dusty Rhodes without any of the charm.
Yeah, I can see that. I did think, that he we'll get through it. I'll have some superstar Billy Graham isms along the way, but I did
there are several
for how much of a zero he was in other appearances. Like, you go to his SummerSlam '88 commentary, total nothing, and a lot of the stuff, here he was he felt like he was trying hard. And
he was engaged.
Maybe he was engaged. Yeah,
maybe to a fault at times, but for the most part, he was engaged. He also laid out very early on. He staked out his territory as far as what he wants to see in his pro wrestling and what he doesn't want to see in his pro wrestling. In the opener, which was a hairy jobber named Blackjack wrestling Sam Houston. Sam Houston, by the way, this is 3-4 years after a lot of the stuff we've seen him on in the NWA, on a lot of these TV shows. Sam Houston comes out. He's wearing chaps. He's doing some wacky cowboy dance that looked more like a Tatanka dance. I don't know what was going on. And then the match starts, and superstar Billy Graham is appalled by how skinny Sam Houston is. And as I'm looking at Sam Houston here and thinking back to all the other times we've seen him on this podcast, all I'm thinking is, by Sam Houston's standards, he is jacked. You can see a neck muscle or two. There's a little bit of definition in his biceps. He is obviously a tall, lanky, narrow guy because that's his build. But he's saying get in the gym, and I'm like, Jesus, this guy's been in nothing but the gym to even get to this level compared to what he was like before.
Oh yeah, Superstar wants Sam Houston to start bulking up, pumping some iron, and it was basically how do you say steroids without
Yes.
actually saying steroids? That
Yes.
was
How do you say find the needle right now without saying that? I want to give Sam Houston some credit as far as being able to adapt, think, be light on his feet. Nothing having to do with actual in-ring moves. The match is about to start. He takes off his chaps. He is also wearing a jacket. He tries to unzip the jacket. The zipper gets caught at the bottom. And like a true pro, the likes I've never seen before, he just decides very quickly to just take the jacket off like it's a shirt, just slips it off over his head, and we're on our way. I have seen guys have much bigger problems with ring jackets in the same scenario. Kudos to Sam Houston.
You mentioned Blackjack, his opponent, just a dude in long black tights, a black mask. He's a substitute for the Iron Sheik, who had
Wow.
just quit the WWF. He's Jack Wildman Armstrong, who was just a nobody wrestler. He did his big claim to fame, according to IMDb. He was in that 1974 The Wrestler movie. So, Blackjack, one of my so Superstar right out of the gate, Superstar Billy Graham describes Blackjack as he's not moving very mobily.
Yes.
So this match was there to help people find their seats too. You can see people milling about in the back, late arriving crowd getting their seats. And
This was WWE Dark Elevation.
very much lots of headlocks, head scissors. Wasn't very good. Even Monsoon's like, back to the headlock, good control hold, but you're not going to beat anybody with it. So he's bored too.
Well, that's the first of dozens of times seemingly throughout this show where Gorilla Monsoon is actively working against the drama the wrestlers are trying to build. As he says, that move won't get it done, or you're not executing this move properly. There's no way this can be a finish. Billy Graham is appalled by Sam Houston's constant return to the headlock, the side headlock takeover. There's one point where Sam Houston hits a great drop kick, which Billy Graham was clearly excited about seeing. And then he is just screaming about Sam Houston going back to the headlock, says, you should have just kept throwing drop kicks till there were no more drop kicks left to throw, and then pin the man. Instead, this match went on and on and on.
He wasn't wrong. Superstar wasn't wrong in that analysis.
He was correct in his analysis. This had big primetime wrestling, Mike Sharp versus Jim Powers vibes. This just kept going forever.
Houston wins with a sloppy looking bulldog. And we're off to the next match.
Well, that is not the name of the move, though. The bulldog is called, according to Gorilla Monsoon, the Steer Buster. And I'm glad he said it twice, because the first time he said it, it sounded like he said the Steel Buster. And I was writing down in my notes, why is this a Steel Buster? And then Gorilla said it's the Steer Buster. Apparently he roped some cattle via a bulldog headlock out on the pasture. Okay.
Barry Horowitz, the favorite jobber of the WWF in the 1980s, Barry Horowitz taking on the Blue Angel, and the Blue Angel comes out, jumps over the top rope, and my notes say, holy crap, that's Owen Hart.
Yes, the Blue Angel was the pre-Blue Blazer masked gimmick for Owen Hart when he first came into the WWF. The look is very low effort in the sense that it is Owen Hart wearing his New Japan gear with a generic light blue mask. So he's got this dark navy blue gear with white accents, and then this powder blue mask that's somewhat more resemblant of the Blue Blazer mask. But yes, it is Owen Hart taking on Barry Horowitz here.
Yeah, so this match starts like you get the Angel leaps to the top rope, drops down, does a flip off the top into the arm drag. WWF 1988, second match on the card. This is spectacular. He's working over the arm. He's doing these smooth transition moves between throws and suplexes while holding the arm the entire time. He's floating over for pin attempts, never giving up the arm along the way. He's high flying. He's doing amazing mat grappling. That I don't know how you watch this and not say this guy's amazing. Like, what a star!
And he's not even small. Like, it always amazes me going back. It's like that being the knock on Owen Hart. He's a high flyer, but he's a big guy. His arms are big, his upper body's big. He's not tiny, and yet, yeah, they threw him in this mask. It was also interesting at the beginning of the match, as like Gorilla Monsoon is basically trying to say this is Owen Hart without saying it's Owen Hart. He's talking about how this is clearly a accomplished, very good professional wrestler from a serious wrestling background. Superstar Billy Graham is freaking out about how great he is. And like the gimmick here with the Blue Angel almost seems to be that like he's not really a masked wrestler. He's a great wrestler. He's going to win a bunch of matches. And then at a certain point, he's going to take the mask off and reveal who he's been the entire time. So it's interesting that that's what they were leaning into versus when he would be the Blue Blazer shortly after that. They never really talked that way about him. But yeah, Owen Blue Angel looks great here. And I'm excited for this match because it feels so much better. Feels like it's so much better of a match, and it's going to be a much more satisfying match than what we saw in the opener. I like Barry Horowitz, but this match grinds to a complete and utter halt when Barry Horowitz gets control.
Yeah, he gets control with a super kick, which I was definitely not expecting
No.
Barry Horowitz to throw out a super kick. And Owen was going a million miles an hour and runs into the super kick hard. And then he gets sent chest first into the buckles in case there was any mystery if he was the brother of Bret Hart.
Exactly. The Bret Hart turnbuckle bump was here in full effect.
But yeah, Horowitz was on offense for a shockingly long amount of time. And this was not good. It exposed just how bad this guy is.
Well, even more so than that, it even took the announcers aback because they're calling this match, the first part of it, as though like Horowitz is a nothing, Blue Angel is incredible, and he's gonna make short work of him. And then Horowitz is on offense, and he's on offense, and he's on offense.
Ugh.
And the story of this match is not supposed to be, wow, Barry Horowitz is better than we think at all. And you can hear the announcers like in what they're not saying, but what they're trying to say through that. Like they're basically saying, why is this match going this way? The Blue Angels should be putting this guy away, like legitimately thinking that.
Yeah, the announcers were all of us watching this match, having the exact same thoughts. The Blue Angel with a turning crossbody off the middle rope. He tosses
Passed
Horowitz.
the Tim Horner test, by the way, we should mention. Totally passed the Tim Horner test on that one.
Yes, absolutely, with flying colors. Horowitz goes flying off the top rope as he's tossed off by the Angel. The Angel hits a top rope shotgun drop kick. Talk about his Japanese days.
Shotgun drop kick off the top that went 3/4 of the way across this huge WWF ring. This was damn near a Van Terminator.
He hits it and then immediately does a kip up, and the place is like, holy crap. Like they are into this now. They've been shook out of the haze they were in with Barry Horowitz on offense. He hits a moonsault. This moonsault was vicious. The knees landing right on the face and chest of Horowitz. But he gets the pin after that in a huge ovation. Well deserved because the Blue Angel's awesome.
Absolutely. Moonsault off the top. We should be clear on that. And it was the type of thing where Owen's top rope moonsault is, I won't say it's as graceful as, but it's somewhat similar to, for example, Kurt Angle, in that the trajectory of it, the motion, the arc is much more, it's high in the air and then down, versus the Great Muta, which is just all snap flying across the ring. And he had Horowitz just a little bit too far out toward the center. And as you said, and even as the announcers basically said, he flipped him and knee dropped him, basically, is what this was. But it was crazy to see a moonsault like this in the WWF in 1988. And to your point earlier, I don't know how, if you're running this company, you watch this match and you don't think this is a guy that we need to do something with right now. Mask, no mask, Blue Angel, Blue Blazer, Owen Hart, whatever you do, this is a guy that is in fact more than just a guy.
No, he's in HD while everyone else is standard definition.
Yes, 100%.
The Bolsheviks come out. Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zhukov. Nikolai's singing the Soviet national anthem, but gets interrupted by the powers of pain who run out to attack
Babyface,
them.
babyface powers of pain. I have zero recollection of them ever being babyfaces in the WWF. They are more than they've ever been in their careers. They are cosplaying the Road Warriors here. I have almost nothing to say about this match other than that the Barbarian is awesome. The Warlord exists and takes up space.
He does.
There's not really, to me, much to say about this all except for the finish, which is a power slam from the Warlord, a crazy top rope flying headbutt from the Barbarian, and we're out.
So this show is taking place 16 days before the first SummerSlam 1988, headlined by the Mega Powers and the Mega Bucks. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But at that SummerSlam show, the Bolsheviks will take on the Powers of Pain, the babyface Powers of Pain here, and this would set up eventually their double turn at the Survivor Series that year, where Demolition went babyface, Powers of Pain went heel, and Mr. Fuji went with the Powers of Pain. So it was a short run of babyface run, but that's where they're at here. The place was nuts for these guys as baby faces. They loved them.
I think it was special, like nearsighted night at LA Sports Arena. They took away everyone's glasses, and these people think it was thought it was Hawk and Animal.
So their match at SummerSlam only went 5.5 minutes.
This went 5.5 hours,
significantly longer. So all I can say is find someone who likes you as much as Superstar loves the Powers of Pain. Those are his wrestlers.
He's so excited about their
Barbarian.
physical appearance. Particularly, he loves the Barbarian, and then when he sees the Warlord, he's like, he's even bigger.
So we're off to a great show. We're off to the opposite of the Syracuse show. We've got 3 straight babyface victories to start the show.
We're off to a crowd-pleasing show. I think the word
correct.
The word great is doing a lot of work here. I think it is being carried entirely by the Blue Angel, Owen Hart, at this point.
Correct. I'm still flying high on the Blue Angel.
We go from there to Jesse the Body Ventura, joining Gorilla Monsoon.
The movie star Body Ventura.
Exactly. They're in LA, so that's why he can join them. He's a movie star now. Joins in for commentary on Special Delivery SD Jones versus a pre-Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig, fresh off of his AWA run. Talk about matches that went on and on and on. Oh
my God.
I was very excited to see Curt Hennig here. I don't know, and this counts all of his matches in WCW.
I think we have the same
after he came back from his Lloyds of London level back injury. I don't think I've ever seen Curt Hennig look worse in a wrestling match than this. He looked awful. The only thing that he did in this match that looked good was he took his flip bumps from the leg kicks in the ropes. Outside of that, if you had only seen this match and had never seen Curt Hennig before, you would think this is a guy who had a cup of coffee in the WWF and went on to wrestle in crappy territories at the end of the territory era and then never was seen or heard from again. The fact that he looked like this here and still got that push, became Mr. Perfect, and looked so great just months later is mind-boggling to me, because I remember him in 1989 as Mr. Perfect wrestling Bret Hart on one of those MSG shows that we got to see here in Chicago. And it was an awesome match. And yes, he was in there with Bret Hart, but he was an active participant in it being so great. He looked horrible here.
Everything about 89 Mr. Perfect was awesome. He had nothing but great matches all the time. This is by far the worst, most boring match I've seen. My notes say, I don't know if I've ever seen a more boring Curt Hennig match. And that covers matches in the AWA and very early on. This was hard to watch. And the three guys on commentary, Superstar, Jesse, and Gorilla Monsoon, they had their own podcast while
Yes.
waiting for something to happen in this match. Yeah, so the I don't know.
I don't know
This
how you
match,
do an actual like move by move review of it.
no,
Like
you can't.
this was SD Jones throwing like the shortest, weakest punches of all time, mixing in a headbutt here or there. Like Curt Hennig having awkward counters for things. Nothing he did looked good, including a horrendous backbreaker. And yes, SD Jones 1988, not good, but Curt Hennig brought nothing to the table here.
No, he wins coming out of the corner, hits a clothesline out of the corner, that his dad's move, the axe.
It's just
And
like a clothesline to the top of the head. It's like a forearm, but instead of hitting with the front of your forearm, you're hitting it with the interior of your forearm. It's very clear why they decided to go with a different finisher for him shortly thereafter.
this match was only 13 minutes, and it felt no less than 30 minutes. This match felt every bit of 30 minutes. How was this only 13? I was shocked.
Every 60-minute match I've seen in my life felt at least a half hour shorter than this. It was terrible. And like, you don't need to watch this, but if you don't believe us and you think that a match during this era of Curt Hennig was this bad and that he was an active participant in it being this bad, go ahead and pull this up and watch. And I don't know if there's a way to skim it, but this was not good.
And now we get to the match before the intermission, which is the main event, but it's not the last match on the show.
The promoted main event, which a lot of times, and I don't know if they did it in arena here, but a lot of times this would be the main event on these house shows, because then something would happen. It would be the title match. The champion would win or something would happen. They go to intermission and the ring announcer would say tickets on sale now and would tell you what the main event was for the next show, which would be coming off of the match you just saw. Or a lot of times it was also because Hulk Hogan just wanted to be able to leave the building early.
Or he was doing a double shot and,
Yes.
and was working two house shows. Here, it's the WWF Championship on the line. The challenger, Andre the Giant, with Bobby the Brain Heenan, taking on the WWF champion, the Macho Man Randy Savage, with Miss Elizabeth. Heenan on the outside, he comes over. He's got words for Elizabeth, and Savage quickly breaks that up. And we get one of my favorite things, Heenan running, like backpedaling backward as fast as he can. Always funny. The ref ends up tossing Heenan for no reason, and he's livid. The Giant's livid, and Heenan's like, he's like, I'm gonna stay right here. I promise. I'll stay right here in the corner. Don't worry about it. The police have to come and escort him out. I was you want to talk about a guy who had other places to be, because he never came back out with Rick Rude later either.
No, we have a backstage promo with him and Rick Rude, but yeah, he never comes out with Rick Rude. It's a shame, because you talk about guys that are in HD while everyone else is in standard definition. Bobby Heenan just leaps off the screen. The crowd is insane as these men come out. This match is about to start. Heenan just incessantly bad-mouthing Elizabeth was just hilarious, just because the juxtaposition of those two characters. Bobby Heenan, the most over-the-top, ridiculous, belligerent, but entertaining guy you've ever seen. And then Elizabeth, who is amazing in her own way and has this presence, but is just completely mute, doesn't react to anything. There's also a moment where the announcers are rightfully pointing out, why does Bobby Heenan have to leave, but Elizabeth gets to stay? And then Billy Graham, in a quote that you could only say in 1988 and certainly not in 2022, basically says, what is the exact thing? He says, she can stay because she's helpless. She's a lady.
The bell rings and we are underway. Andre is trying to grab Savage a few times, but Savage is able to evade him using quickness.
Yes, he is using quickness. Meanwhile, Andre, who is very hobbled here, is using the ropes as he's trying to lunge toward Randy Savage. This is not like 1992 in All Japan Andre, but this is an Andre that is having trouble.
Oh no, this 1987 at WrestleMania 3 he was having trouble.
Yes.
And so a year later in 88 he can do even less. The main event of the SummerSlam show is Hogan and Savage as the Mega Powers taking on the Mega Bucks team of Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant. So this was a singles match for Andre here in 1988. Not a ton of them. More in 1989. He had a weird run in '89. There, his last run was like with John Studd and with Andre the Giant and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He had a weird run in '89, but in '88 it was
imagine a singles match in 1989 between Andre the Giant and Big John Studd. Big John Studd coming off of his Royal Rumble win. They were going to do something big with him. That push did not survive that Andre feud.
One headbutt in this match, and then a punch from Andre, and Savage is down on the outside. Back inside, Andre's choking Savage. He's choking him with his hands. Then he's using the strap on his tights to choke him.
Which they call a tunic.
They did.
I don't think the single strap on tights, like a singlet, I don't think that's what a tunic is. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that's the dictionary definition of a tunic, though.
But they were laughing because, like, Andre's got these giant hands and he's using a tiny strap to choke. He's just being evil for the sake of, he's just cheating for the sake of cheating.
Not for any actual gain, because there's no way this would hurt more than Andre choking with your bare hands. It's just so embedded in your nature that you are a bad person, a cheater, as you would yell out at wrestling shows, Jeremy. That's just what Andre does. And hockey games as well, whenever there's a penalty.
Andre standing tall. Some shoulder blocks in the corner on Savage, and Savage gets a knee up. Andre catches the knee on the side of the head. Savage then comes off the top of the double axe handle. He's throwing quick punches, but Andre cuts him off with a headbutt.
I love that counter of these shoulder blocks in the corner. You know, the classic shoulder blocks of the stomach in the corner. On the third or fourth one, as you said, Savage gets his knee up, and Andre basically headbutts himself into Savage's knee. That's something that needs to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that was a great counter to get out of this predicament. And then we get a bear hug by Andre. Andre's got the bear hug on. We get a close-up of the hands. We get no critique from Gorilla Monsoon. He is satisfied with his bear hug.
The most disappointing thing on this show is that a bear hug happens from Andre the Giant, and Gorilla Monsoon has no comment. Nope. I feel if I was paying for the Z channel as a 7-year-old, I would have asked my mom if she could get us a refund.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, go back to the Royal Albert Hall episode of this podcast, probably season 1 of this podcast. One of my favorite episodes we ever did, and Gorilla Monsoon critiquing bear hugs in the most hilarious way. So go back and listen to that podcast if you haven't. That's one of my favorites on this channel.
Oh, absolutely. Same with me. I thought that was one of the best ones we did for sort of this weird time capsule show that was WWF and Royal Albert Hall in 1991. Fear not, though. There will be submission hold critiques later on, just not a bear hug.
Savage uses the ear clap to get his way free. He goes off the ropes. Andre misses a big boot. Savage hits a clothesline, and Andre is down, and his arms are tied in the ropes. So the classic Andre the Giant falls down, gets his arms tied in the rope spot. The place goes insane for Andre getting stuck in the ropes.
There's so much more into this than anything else on the show. I mean, not that that's surprising, but it definitely needs to be said. Also, this is a much more effective spot when it is Randy Savage and Andre the Giant doing it than when it is, once again, I hate referencing that match, but
from Primetime,
Jim Powers and Iron Mike Sharp from Primetime Wrestling. And also, I don't think Randy Savage is going to suffer the same embarrassing fate as Jim Powers did.
So Andre, known for his hard head and headbutts, right? So Macho Man is not punching the head of Andre. He's throwing kicks and nothing but kicks. And then he's pulling at Andre's face and nose, trying to bust the nose that way. And then he's just stomping him with kicks. So I'm like, this is a perfect strategy for a smaller guy here. The ref helps get one arm out, finally sets the other arm free. They start trading shots, and Andre knocks him into the corner and hits a few brutal chops in the corner on Macho Man.
Yeah, hard overhand chops. Looked like his hand was going to go straight through the body, through the chest of Randy Savage.
More choking by Andre. Andre takes the turnbuckle pad off. Again, cheating for no other reason but to cheat. Takes the turnbuckle pad off. He rams the back of Savage's head into the exposed buckle 3 times, and then Andre goes for a headbutt. Savage is able to move, and Andre headbutts the exposed turnbuckle. Savage then rams him into the turnbuckle again, not once, 6 more times, and then the Giant falls down.
We should give special credit here. A shout out to Andre the Giant. He was awesome staggering and grabbing the ropes and looking glassy-eyed before finally falling. You don't necessarily think of Andre the Giant in 1988 in particular as a great seller or like taking a great bump, but he was great here. Like this, we'll obviously finish describing the match, but this match, for what it was, as far as the actual in-ring action, for Andre the Giant being completely immobile and Savage having to carry him, this was so much more entertaining than I expected it to be.
Oh, absolutely. So as the Giant goes down, as you described, he's down on the mat. Savage takes no time. He sprints to the top rope, takes advantage, hits the flying elbow. And I'm like going nuts. I'm like, holy crap. They're like, Savage is going to pin Andre. No, huge kick out by Andre.
Which I had the same reaction you did because I had no recollection of anyone kicking out of the top rope elbow drop before Hulk Hogan did at WrestleMania 5. It never happened on sort of proper official canon WWF television.
Monsoon even references it. Like, no one's kicked out of that.
Well, and at WrestleMania 5, they say when Hogan kicks out of the top rope elbow that nobody's ever done it before, but here it happens. I was shocked. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't remember Andre winning, so I guess we're going to have some sort of wacky finish here. So I can't imagine Savage is going to beat him with something other than that.
No, and it wasn't just like he got his shoulder up. Like he like threw Savage off him.
If he was just a little bit closer to the ropes, this would have been the precursor to Yokozuna kicking out of the elbow drop and eliminating Randy Savage from the Royal Rumble in the process.
Savage misses a knee drop. Both men roll outside. Andre's leaning against the steps. Elizabeth runs up the steps to the ring apron.
For no reason.
No reason. Like, none whatsoever. Both guys are outside the ring.
Both guys are outside of the ring. Nothing is happening. The only reason Elizabeth runs up the steps to the apron is so Andre the Giant can do what you're going to describe.
I feel like she should have already been there when the guys both went out.
Or maybe she should have been there as after Savage hit the top rope elbow because she's anticipating her man is going to win because he's never not won with that move. The kick out happens. Then she's on the apron in the corner looking all concerned and shocked. And then what happens?
And then she would have gone down the stairs to go check on him when Savage rolled out to the outside.
Yes.
But so we fixed it. That's not how they did it. She climbs up the steps, gets on the apron for no reason. Andre then grabs her by the ankle. He grabs her leg and ankle. Savage is attacking Andre. He's not letting go. They fight on the outside. The bell rings. Andre lets go. He gets inside. He grabs the title belt. He's holding it up, celebrating with the championship. It's announced.
Let's hold on. Let's analyze this a little bit. First, we have what we've talked about before in 80s WWF, which is the referee counting 12 times faster when there's going to be a finish versus when there isn't going to be a finish on a count out. Then, and I know the idea with Andre is that he's not smart as a wrestling character, but Andre the Giant, after this, whatever happens, goes into the ring and thinks that whatever it was that the referee's decision was out on the floor, that meant he was going to be the champion. He either got disqualified, got counted out, or it was a double count out, none of which are even in the universe of possibilities that could lead to him being the champion.
No, again, I'm going to put this in the cheating for the sake of cheating,
Yes.
celebrating a victory, trying to convince the referee that you should be the champion when there's 0 scenarios that happened that would have resulted in you being champion based on what just rolled out in front of you. But yeah, he grabs the belt, he's holding it up, he's celebrating. It's announced as a double count out. The Macho Man then carries Miss Elizabeth to the back.
This double count out, frustrating finish. Yeah, I don't know. This was fun though. I enjoyed it.
This exceeded all of my expectations. I was blown away by how much I enjoyed this. The 16 days later would be the SummerSlam match. So after Hogan and Savage win at SummerSlam, that's where Hogan brushes his hand against the butt of Miss Elizabeth as she's up on the shoulders, and you get a little glance from Savage, and it starts the whole Mega Powers exploding build up to WrestleMania 5, one of the best long-term stories they've ever done.
We detailed in full on that episode of Primetime Wrestling, that special episode of Primetime Wrestling in 1989. That was the lead into WrestleMania 5, the face-to-face episode of Primetime, where they had all the literally face-to-face showdowns at podiums with Vince McMahon moderating. They did a great job on that show of recapping that, and we did a pretty darn good job of recapping the recap.
As we always do. And yeah, so this set up a return. The Macho Man will be back later. So we hit intermission right now, where I'm sure they said tickets will go on sale for the next event, which actually, like a month later, had a Savage Andre rematch. So
yeah,
that's intermission entertainment. Here was locker room interviews that were recorded earlier in the day.
But they weren't overly clear that they were recorded earlier in the day. So we had Gorilla Monsoon throwing to Gorilla Monsoon in the locker room. And it immediately made me think of Gorilla Monsoon doing commentary for Gorilla Monsoon refereeing a match. And Gorilla Monsoon never identifying himself as Gorilla Monsoon in commentary and just saying the referee. And it also made me think of that other tape that we reviewed where we had Gorilla Monsoon doing commentary live, and then we had a second commentary track of Gorilla Monsoon doing post-produced commentary over Gorilla Monsoon. So this is
Philadelphia match from the Spectrum. Yeah,
it is the theme of this podcast of many. One of them is Gorilla Monsoon Inception.
In the back, they interview Rick Rude and Bobby Heenan. They bring up Jake the Snake's wife, Cheryl Roberts, which is another great storyline that they were doing, where Rick Rude would have Jake the Snake Roberts' wife airbrushed on his tights. Monsoon then interviews the Rougeau brothers in the locker room. Monsoon jokes. His favorite joke about any Canadian heels is, if you love Canada so much, I can see if we can get you paid in Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
And then the Rougeaus let us know that they have an 800 number for fans to call to tell them where you'd like them to move to when they move to the U.S.
1-800-FABULOUS. I had forgotten, we'll see even more in this match, I had forgotten how much I enjoyed the Rougeaus as just the smarmy, ridiculously over-the-top mid-card heel tag team who could also do some cool stuff. Like, in my mind, I always associate them so much with Dino Bravo and being double managed by both Frenchie Martin and Jimmy Hart, dressed up like he's like a living embodiment of the Quebec Nordiques. But they're fun here in the match that we will see next. It is the Rougeau brothers, the Fabulous Rougeaus, against the very newly babyface but still wrestling like heels, Hart Foundation.
That's right. A lot of house show stalling early. The
Yes.
first 5 minutes of this, we had a shoulder tackle by Anvil, an elbow drop by the Hitman, and the rest were just Rougeau shenanigans.
Yes, yes, very much house show Rougeau shenanigans. I had some fun announcer notes. First, we got the obligatory, this could be a main event anywhere in the world, which Gorilla Monsoon said here. That is said at least once on every wrestling show from every promotion in the decade of the 1980s, and this was no exception. Also, I howled with laughter as Superstar Billy Graham described the appearance, the physique of Jim the Anvil Neidhart as, quote, a square block, which is very accurate. He also really, really, really likes Bret Hart's wet hair. He commented on
So cool.
on that.
He thought that was so cool. Yeah.
He liked that almost as much as he liked the size of the Barbarian and the Warlord. And then also we have Gorilla Monsoon. This must have been in the very early stages of them deciding like what nickname they were going to give Bret Hart, because instead of the excellence of execution throughout this match, Gorilla Monsoon calls Bret Hart the mastery of execution, which does not quite have the same ring to it.
No.
Not quite the same alliteration.
There was also a weird part at the beginning where they were Superstar and Monsoon were confused by bike shorts.
What was that? They've never seen bike shorts before?
The Rougeaus are in bike shorts, and they were like, where's the other half of your gear? Like, where's the other half of the singlet? Or where's the other half of the long tights? Like, they were wildly confused by by bike shorts. So.
Yeah, I noted the same thing, but then I was trying to think like, well, was there anyone else in wrestling with that look?
I racked my brain as well. I was like, wait, am I being too hard on him here? Wait, did the Rougeaus invent bike shorts in wrestling?
Like, I definitely remember, and maybe it wasn't until like the early 90s, but I definitely remember that almost being the official uniform of jobbers on Superstars. But you know, I don't know. They were dumbfounded here. This was new fashion in 1988 for both Gorilla and the Superstar.
Hart's double team Ramon in their corner. They did my favorite babyface switch without tagging, just because that's what they've always done as heels for so long. They keep doing it.
I love that in this match, and that's one of them as well, where they do the switch behind the referee's back, clap their hands, even though they could have just made the tag. I know that's one of your favorite spots always, but I did like that they don't have Jimmy Hart anymore. They are courting the cheers of the fans, but they are so used to wrestling as heels for their entire WWF careers that they don't really know how to start this match any other way than just doing a bunch of heelish stuff and still getting cheered. One of the things they do get cheered for is the big Jim the Anvil Neidhart drop kick, which we see several times. I think you and I, before we started doing this podcast, meaning this whole podcast series several years ago, we had completely forgotten that Jim the Anvil Neidhart had a great standing drop kick. And then we are reminded every time we see him. He does it every time.
I know. I don't know how I didn't remember this, seeing that he does it every single time. But yeah, it was something that this podcast reintroduced to us, and it popped me the first few times I saw the Anvil throwing these great drop kicks. We get Jacques tripping the Hitman from the outside to give the Rougeaus the advantage. Heat on the Hitman for a long time, like Marty Jannetty on that AWA 87 show. Long time.
Yes. The only thing that helps it here is that the crowd is bigger, the crowd is more engaged. It's Bret Hart, but yes, this goes on and on. The theme of this match is that kayfabe wise, Dave Hebner is the worst referee you have ever seen. And it's so funny because Superstar Billy Graham is trying to say, oh, well, like, there's no way the referee could have missed that. There's no way. And then even he has to give this up as the match goes on. There are no less, and there may have been more, but there are no less than a half dozen times where he misses the tag. He's distracted. He misses obvious interference from the heels or even the baby faces. This happens so many times.
Hitman finally makes the hot tag, and the Anvil runs wild. He throws that drop kick we talked about. Hitman right back in off the second rope. They do like a modified version of Demolition's finisher, where
Yeah.
the Rougeaus over the knee of Anvil, but Hitman, instead of coming off with an elbow drop, comes off with the elbow drop straight down
Well,
onto.
it's a good thing he did that too, because think of the disaster of if he went for the regular version of the elbow drop off
Oh,
a
he has
second,
to
because
miss that.
we've established that it's impossible for him to hit that over his entire career. What would that have looked like? That would have meant that like Ray Rougeau would have had to flip off the knee to get out, and would Bret Hart have crashed elbow first into the knee of Jim Neidhart? They averted disaster here.
Well, and a little extra to that move, the announcers didn't point it out, but the Harts were challenging Demolition for the tag team titles at SummerSlam 16 days from now. So throwing that in there. All four men are in the ring. Hitman hits a pile driver, and then Jacques off the middle rope comes with a blow to the back of the Hitman, who had Ramon covered. Jacques then gets the pin on the Hitman. I was completely shocked, especially like I just mentioned, the Hearts are getting the tag title shot at SummerSlam. Completely surprised by this result. The
Didn't we
Rougeaus pinning Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation.
didn't we have a match on a tape or a WWF show of some sort? Maybe it was a prime time, something that we reviewed from this era where the Hart Foundation similarly lost to a team that they absolutely should have beaten. Like, I don't think it was the Bolsheviks, but it might as well have been. And Bret Hart got pinned, and we were appalled. And that was it was my same reaction, the same reaction I had here. Gorilla Monsoon was his most Gorilla Monsoon here, complaining about the refs. He vociferously criticized Raymond Rougeau's abdominal stretch, saying he did not grapevine the leg and that there was no way that Bret Hart would give up. And this was at a point in the match where Bret was supposed to be in peril, and you were supposed to believe that he may, in fact, give up. Also, have to note, Jacques Rougeau firmly established himself as a heel in this match, not by his taunts, not by his cheating, but by the fact that he, as a man in good shape, no gut, not fat, hit a standing splash. If he was a babyface, the knees would have come up and he would have been in trouble. So he's established heel hitting that move.
For me, this is the best in-ring action of the entire show. This is the best match in ring. I think I was more entertained by Andre and Savage, but I think this match in the ring really delivered. I thought this was a good match.
I thought it was good. I thought Bret looked great. The Rougeaus did some really cool stuff. We got some drop kicks from Anvil. I think that the main event, which we'll get to, particularly the beginning of the main event, was light years better than anything else on this show. We'll get to that momentarily. But yeah, this was good. Maybe I didn't like it as much as I should have because the finish annoyed me, as did all the just Dave Hebner being the worst referee ever, missing everything in kayfabe. But yes, this was fun. We then have the Macho Man Randy Savage returning. My
serious
favorite,
Macho Man.
Serious Macho Man. He clearly just had a shower. He's got a towel over his neck. He's got wet hair that I'm sure was of great interest to superstar Billy Graham. The thing that I like most about this is that Randy Savage has a second pair of wrestling tights. Different length. They are full length, long wrestling tights, red and black, that he just puts on after he showers, that most times I guess he wouldn't wrestle in. Like, it looks like the type of stuff he would wrestle in some 10 years later from here. I don't know why he's wearing this instead of like other normal people clothes after a shower, like workout clothes or something. That amused me greatly, but he is serious. I'm hoping, much like that episode of Monday Nitro some 9 years later that you and I attended at the United Center, I was hoping he had a chair and we were going to have a sit-down strike in the center of the ring.
He comes down to the ring and he's got something to say.
Sure, to the big guy, Andre the Giant.
Oh, no, you know it, brother.
I got a message for only one man. I got a message for you, Andre the Giant. I've paid my dues in the squared circle, and I just left the dressing room where Elizabeth is not only scared, but she's hurt. She's been hurt by you, Andre the Giant. 7'5", 550 pounds. Hurt someone on the outside of the ring that's not a professional wrestler and is only 103 pounds. When Elizabeth is hurting, I'm hurting. Bobby Heenan, I've signed an open contract. And that means that any damn time that I get your man Andre the Giant in this squared circle, I'm gonna kick his ass.
That's what they wanted to hear.
Oh yeah, that's pretty blunt too, brother.
Yeah, after that promo, that'll get the Los Angeles fans back in a month, right?
Yeah, I would have been running. I would have been running to the box office to get my ticket. So absolutely, very effective.
And now we go to the main event. Ravishing Rick Rude comes out. He tells all the fat, ugly West Coast worms to keep the noise down while he takes his robe off.
I will say that I think one of the women in the front row would agree with Rick Rude asking people to keep the noise down. Not because she doesn't like the rest of the people there, but she, as a woman in her 20s at a pro wrestling show, is sitting front row with a bemused look on her face, knitting.
Knitting, like she's got giant knitting needles and a thing. She's working on a blanket or something.
She's
working on a scarf
into a blanket that she's been working on. This is what you would expect, one of the grannies that we've talked about on a world-class show or a 70s or early 80s Madison Square Garden show that we've reviewed. This woman is in the demographic of people that they would show when Rick Rude comes out, but it would be the woman who's swooning and got her hand on her chest and she just can't believe Rick Rude's muscles. Here, this woman of the same age and look is just knitting.
That was so weird. It was also weird. Some dude holds up his 6-year-old shirtless kid who starts flexing and posing in front of Rick Rude's pose. This was hilarious.
It was hilarious, and it was also fascinating to me because he held his child aloft in the air in a different way than I've ever seen a human being hold a child before. I don't even know how to describe this. It was he had his hands under the kid's knees or lower thigh and elevated him to the heavens. If this was a cage match, this kid could have climbed out without even having to step. He was already over. This was so distracting. I don't know how. I have no idea how Rick Rude did not break character and completely lose it.
He didn't even acknowledge that kid was doing that.
What a pro.
His opponent, Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake comes out. He grabs the mic. He says he's disappointed that Rude didn't wear the Cheryl Roberts tights.
He said he's disappointed that you wore it on TV day. He said, but you didn't wear it here. We should also note this is sort of a house show that's being televised, but not a true television show. Liberal use of the word ass in the last 30 minutes of this program, as Randy Savage says he's going to kick Andre the Giant's ass, which you just heard in that promo. And then Jake the Snake Roberts says the same thing about Rick Rude here. Couple notes. First, Jake the Snake Roberts is in the best shape I've ever seen him in his entire life. Like, he's not ripped like Lex Luger, but he's cut. He's got biceps. He has neck muscles, and they are moving at the start of this. Jake chases Rude out to the floor, back into the ring, and I feel like I'm watching an Azumi Starlight Kid match in Stardom. It's like the high-speed title is on the line between Jake the Snake Roberts and Ravishing Rick Rude. This is awesome.
No, they started like a fight, which you love to see when it's a personal story. This is a personal story of Rick Rude going after Jake's wife. So Jake is not here to wrestle; he's here to fight, and Rude is running away because he cannot hang in a fight with Jake. So yeah, this was great. A lot of back and forth. Jake immediately goes for the DDT. Rude avoids it.
I love when Jake goes for the DDT and whoever his opponent is here, Rick Rude, avoids it. How Jake goes down to the mat so quickly as well. Like he's not trying to do the move any less aggressively than he would if he hits it. Like there's no tell that this isn't going to be hit. I am just in love with this match at the start. Just the intensity and urgency from from Jake. Rude has every bit as much urgency in getting out of the ring. And yeah, this is good stuff to start.
Yeah, after a second attempt at a DDT, Rude rolls to the floor to escape this time. Jake looked like he hurt himself. I couldn't tell if he was selling or if he was actually injured here.
When he went for the DDT again and dropped down, and then when Rude went out, he definitely looked slower after that. I was distracted though, because a different child than the child that was lifted to the heavens shirtless earlier, a different child is giving Rick Rude the finger, and it's blurred here. The finger is blurred, which just cracked me up because there's so much stuff that we've seen of fans giving wrestlers the finger on pay-per-views that are on the WWE Network /Peacock that are never blurred. But here on this hidden gem, old school WWF house show from August 13th, 1988, someone watched this show, someone working for the company watched this show all the way through, that deeply into the main event, that they blurred this middle finger of a young fan, and it wasn't even like it was a close-up. This was just something that the hard cam caught in the foreground, and they had to blur it.
Jake works a wrist lock. We get a rope break, and Rude goes to the outside again. Jake follows him and rams the arm and shoulder into the ring post. Jake drops the arm over the top rope. He's working this arm hold for a while. The crowd starts chanting for DDTs.
The punch to the armpit from Jake, I loved that.
So did Gorilla Monsoon. He thought that was awesome too.
He loved that. That was very cool. I also, the one point to where Superstar Billy Graham reached entertaining just in terms of absurdity levels that Dusty Rhodes would often reach on WCW shows, is when Billy Graham is convinced multiple times in the course of a sentence, a rebuttal, and then another sentence, that in 1988, they are living in the 23rd century.
The 23rd century. Gorilla Monsoon almost died when he's like, "Are you sure? Do you want to take a minute?"
Well, the best part was that Billy corrected himself and said the 20th century, and then immediately said the 23rd century again, and then had to correct himself again. This was fantastic.
So we get Jake working the arm for a while here. He goes for the short clothesline but misses, and Rude hits a clothesline. Jake rolls outside.
Rude underrated lariat guy for the time, and for a guy that didn't spend a ton of time in Japan. Underrated, nice clothesline from Rick Rude.
Jake's outside. Rude rams Jake back first into the post. Back inside, Rude is working over the back of Jake, almost like a camel clutch chin lock here by Rick Rude.
Yep, just without the arms draped over your own knees. But yeah, not like a reverse chin lock. This is camel clutch adjacent.
Jake powers out of it. He tries the DDT a few times. Each time gets countered again by Rude. Jake knocked off the apron with a clothesline by Rude.
Takes a hard bump. Like this wasn't quite a Mick Foley Cactus Jack Nesty plunge, but it was closer to it than I ever expected to see in 1988 from Jake the Snake.
Rude rams Jake back first into the post again. Jake's on the apron. Rude is in the ring. He picks him up and pulls him over the top rope like he's going to try to slam him into the ring. Jake's holding onto the top rope. Rude can't slam him, can't break the grip on the top rope, falls back. Jake lands on top of Rick Rude and gets the 3 count. Your winner, Jake the Snake Roberts. Rude infuriated after putting the boots to him after the match, and the show just cuts off and goes off the air.
Yeah, they wrap it up. The announcers wrap it up, so it's definitely the actual ending of the show as far as the TV portion. I really enjoyed this match. The finish was a little confusing to me, or a little counterproductive, in that, you have Jake win basically by Rude slipping on a banana peel. Rude beats him down after the match, and then Jake just lays on the floor and the show goes off the air. Like, I fully expected that what was going to happen was, after Jake gets this sort of, kind of flash pin on Rude tries to beat him down. Jake hits the DDT to send the fans home happy.
Never got the DDT.
No, they never got the DDT. But doing it that way would have had Rude lose, but he doesn't lose to the DDT. He loses in kind of a fluky way, so he keeps his heat. But then Jake hits the DDT, sends the fans home happy, and makes Jake look strong. Instead, Jake wins, but it seems like it's a fluke. He gets beat down afterward, and then it's just over. Kind of a strange way to finish the show, but I love this match, particularly the first half. Like I said, that opening 3-4 minutes, I thought was by far the best thing on this show. Just the intensity, the urgency from both guys. There was one point before the match started to slow down where, like, they had a fiery square off where they're both, hands up, almost like boxing style position. They're both yelling at each other. Hebner's yelling at both of them. That was so great, so exciting. It did kind of drop off toward the end, but still good stuff.
Is that your best thing on the show?
I would say for me, that was definitely my best thing on the show. I always, like, to me, those two guys, Rude and Jake, are just attached at the hip. Like, they're just such a perfect matchup for each other, both in terms of characters and in ring. And I just thought that had an intensity that nothing else on the show had. Honorable mentions to Blue Angel being awesome. And also Randy Savage, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Andre the Giant pulling off a much better match than I would have expected, given all the constraints of what Andre was, even if the finish sucked.
Yeah, I'll say that's my favorite thing on this show, I think, was that match overall, total as a package. That I thought that was because it exceeded all my expectations. Expectations were low. They were exceeded. I had a great time watching that match. I did love everything you mentioned in the main event as well, but definitely my favorite thing was Andre and Savage. Worst thing on this show for you?
Worst thing on this show is, as much as I would be tempted to say, like, Barry Horowitz's performance or the opener or the Bolsheviks' Powers of Pain, to me, the worst thing on the show is how terrible Curt Hennig looked. That was shocking for a young, but not like so young. Like, we've seen Curt Hennig in 87, 88 on AWA stuff, and he looked great. And you could see the path to him being Mr. Perfect. Here, he looked awful against SD Jones. The other thing I would just say is that I think you and I differed more on Hart Foundation and Rougeaus than we probably have on a lot of other things that we've watched in recent episodes. Like, I didn't mind it. But I think you enjoyed it a lot more than I did. I think I probably, like I said, couldn't get my head around seeing Bret Hart drop the fall here. It just annoyed me. The mastery of execution with his beautiful wet hair was so great, and he was screwed.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me that how much I hated that SD Jones match. It was SD Jones and Curt Hennig was so long. Like, while Barry Horowitz in the Blue Angel, while Horowitz was on offense, was bad. The match overall was great because of the Blue Angel. So I have to say the worst thing in the show by a mile has to be that SD Jones Curt Hennig match, because it just went on, and there was no redeeming value. at all. Like it felt like 30 minutes at minimum. It was 13 of the longest. Like just terrible stuff I've seen. So yeah, that's absolutely the worst thing on the show.
Well, it did not get any better when Curt Hennig was on offense versus when SC Jones was on offense. And that is not something you would expect at all. And that's in stark contrast to, as you mentioned, Blue Angel, Owen Hart, and Barry Horowitz, where when Horowitz was on offense, it was really boring. But when Angel was on offense, it was great.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up. So definitely, if you want to interact with the show, you need to do that via social media, Twitter at Wrestle at Random, same for Instagram, Facebook.com/Wrestling at Random as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the shows, other shows we reviewed. If you're, this is all evergreen content. If you're just now watching the Battle of Royal Albert Hall, you're just now listening to that podcast, and you think something's great or hilarious, and you want to chime in, interact with us that way. We remember that show. We just brought it up again today. So please, interact with the show no matter where you are in the evergreen watching and listening of the podcast timeline. I mentioned watching because we're also on YouTube. You can subscribe there as well. Search for Wrestling at Random Podcast. It'll pull it up there. All the subscribes, comments, all that stuff helps us to work the algorithm and get discovered by other folks. Same thing with the subscribing to the podcast. The audio version is always our love, and we need to continue to grow it. And the way you can do that is by supporting us two ways. One, via our Patreon, patreon.com/wrestling at random. There we have bonus episodes that come out every single week. If you're listening in linear fashion, 90 some episodes into that bonus content. When you subscribe, you unlock all of them, the entire back catalog of the podcast. So there's some great stuff back there. You subscribe for 1 month, you've unlocked the entire back catalog. We also have options for you to be the randomizer. We call it the intentionalizer. All the details there at the Patreon, patreon.com/wrestling at random. The best way to support this show. If you can't support us financially in these times, we also understand that as well. You can support the show by word of mouth, by telling your wrestling fan friends about the show. Wrestling fans know other wrestling fans, so make sure you tell them about the show and show them how to subscribe to the podcast. We're available anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. So help them out. Your word of mouth is another great way to support the show. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. I was at a loss for words because I was still legitimately reflecting on that Curt Hennig SD Jones match, and I still can't wrap my mind around Curt Hennig looking that bad in 1988. So thank you, randomizer, I guess. I never in a million years would have thought that was possible. And now, probably for the next few years at least, every single time I see Curt Hennig, every single time we watch a show that has a Curt Hennig match, that is going to be in my mind, and I will most likely bring it up on the show because even months or years later, I will still be trying to process that match.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And we'll talk to you again